Okay, so let's get started. Hi, I'm Weiser Cornell, and this is a webinar on navigating loss and change. And who am I? I'm Weiser Cornell, and I'm the president and CEO of Focusing Resources. I'm the co-creator with Barbara McGavin of Inner Relationship Focusing. And my latest book is called Presence, a guide to transforming your most challenging emotions. And this webinar, we're going to ask, are you faced with a changed world you never planned for? I'm not just talking about the pandemic and the other huge, monumental challenges humans are facing right now. I'm also talking about events in your life that you might be facing that aren't occurring necessarily on a global level, but for you, it's a changed world you never planned for. And it's natural to be stunned by a loss. Stunned, confused, flattened, unable to move forward. I feel like I really want to say that that's natural, that's understandable, that's normal. Maybe the first thing we need to do is let it be okay for us to have the reactions we're having. And I mentioned being stunned or flattened, or I forget what else I said, overwhelmed. That might not be your reaction. We'll give some support today in having whatever your reaction is, because big change and big loss can leave you feeling confused and anchorless. And when more than one big change or loss comes at you at once, it can be even harder. I'll be talking about change, big change and loss, almost as if they're the same thing, because there's something about big change that can impact us. It is a kind of loss of something when there's a big sudden change that we didn't plan for. So loss and change can be hard, but in some mysterious way, loss can open us up to change we didn't know was possible. In other words, it can open us to something creative, fresh, new. And how do we go from here to there? Well, what we'll do today is three things. We'll follow a simple yet powerful process for accompanying your own feelings about loss, whatever they are. We'll learn a practice for increasing your trust in your own inner knowing, and we'll help you gain a deeper understanding of how loss and change can open you up to more than was possible before. So it all starts with accompanying your feelings. That is this ground zero. Now that's the base practice. To pause, to be present in your body. And let's do that together right now. Pause, be present in your body. And you know, if you're like me, sometimes I forget my body. I'm roaming around all day, busy, and like, body, what body? So there's actually a step of really sensing the body in contact with what you're touching. Like, I can now feel the floor and the chair. A minute ago, I wasn't really feeling it. Pausing to feel simply your body right now. And if that is even a bit challenging now that we've paused, it does get easier with practice. And what's the easiest thing in the body to feel? Well, often it's the hands. Often we can feel our hands more easily than other parts of the body. The hands have more connections in the brain than any other part of the body. I put my hand up here because that's how brain maps look. The hand is really huge. So see if you can feel your hands. And it's okay if you rub your fingers together or rub your hands on something. Yeah, there's your hands. And now see if you can feel the contact on the chair. Now sometimes I wiggle a little so I can feel it better. Yeah, there you are. There you are. And now let go of having to hold yourself up. The chair can hold you. Like settle in. Let it hold you. And whatever you've gone through, you're here, I'm sure, because there's been some big change for you, and maybe more than one, and maybe a loss, and maybe more than one. And the slide says, let go of expectations. But what I mean by that is, let's not assume we know how this is going to feel. Let's bring awareness into body feeling without knowing how it will feel. Even if 5 minutes ago it felt like a heaviness weighing on your heart, we don't actually know how it's going to feel right now. So bringing awareness inward and sensing what it actually feels like right now. And there's a great gift in sensing how it feels exactly as it is. There's no need to soft pedal it. There's no need to make it light. If your body is telling you it's really, really, really heavy, it needs to have you say back to it, I hear it's really, really, really heavy. It won't help to say, oh body, I hear it's a little bit heavy. Do you see what I mean? So in other words, how you feel in your body right now as you think of your circumstance, your loss, your big changes, how you feel in your body right now, among other things, is a communication. It's a message. It's something we can hear, something we can receive. And the receiving of it is part of the power of this process here. Yeah, we're doing that together right now. Beautiful. And now let's take another little step along the same line that has to do with you are bigger than your feelings. And so take the words that you just found to describe how you feel and put them in a sentence like, I am sensing something in me feels, and then fill in the sentence. So I was using really, really, really heavy as an example. If that was your example, it would sound like, I'm sensing something in me feels really, really, really heavy. And pause, and let me invite you to pause and do that right now. I am sensing something in me feels really, really, really heavy. And or what are your words, right? Tight, sad, scared, anxious, like I'm being crushed into powder. I remember one time when my brother and my sister were both dying of cancer in a tragic coincidence. My brother and sister both died of cancer in the same month, and I felt like I was being ground into powder. And that did not feel very good, but there was also a funny kind of relief in finding that image, that metaphor, like I'm being ground into powder. And then I could say, I'm sensing something in me feels ground into powder. And the next step is, I'm saying hello to that. I'm saying hello to that, because there's more to you than this. You are able to say hello. No matter how bad, no matter how difficult it feels, you can sense it and you can say hello to it. Do you feel that? And the final step there is to say, and I am saying hello. I am here. I'm here with all of that. I'm here with all of that. Notice what quality occurs inside you when you acknowledge how you feel. And then you say, and I am here with all of that. We're just taking a bit of time to let that happen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, because when I do, I can't see the chat. And I wonder what you would like to share with me about how that was. Yeah, welcome to everyone. Welcome to people for whom this is your first time. Welcome to people who've been with us before on these webinars. It's really come one, come all. Susan writes in the chat, I'm afraid I won't have the energy to go on. So Susan, the next step there is to say, I am sensing something in me that is afraid I won't have the energy to go on. And to say that with compassion for that something in you, afraid you won't have the energy to go on. And to say hello to that. And I'm putting my hand on my body, and it might feel good to do that too, because this is a very self-compassionate thing to do. Sometimes when life is hard, it isn't so easy to be self-compassionate. Susan has raised her hand. Hey, Susan.
Hi, can you hear me?
I hear you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, a part of my question about not having the energy to go on is that because I feel so overwhelmed, what happens is my mind starts throwing out these stories about it. Oh, I won't be able to carry on. Oh, this is it for me. Oh, this is so hard. And it's almost like they're a little cage. And it's so hard to remember to stop listening to the stories. And I'm just wondering if you could say something about that.
I would love to. But before I let you go,
Yeah.
What happened right now when you try the words, I'm sensing something in me that's afraid I won't have the energy to go on?
Well, you know, I felt it when I put my hand on my chest.
That's when it helped. The hand on the chest. Excellent.
And I try to do that more. I've been taking deep breaths and relaxing, and then, you know, the mind
And what's
comes back.
What's one of the things? What does it say? What's an example of something that what you call your mind is? I don't really think that's the mind. I think it's a part. But what does it say?
It's a part. Oh, that I've just really used up I've just run out of energy, and I've used up my options, and, you know, I'm out of.
All right, let's take, I've used up my options. Let's take that one as an example. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the phrase, I want to offer you the phrase, I'm sensing something in me that says I've used up my options. Mm-hmm. So the word is says, if it's a thought, quote unquote thought. I'm sensing something in me that says I've used up my options. And then instead of saying hello to it, say, hello, it sounds like you're worried. So we understand that the one that says, I've used up my options, is actually saying, I'm worried we've used up our options.
I'm worried, yeah.
It says, and you say to it, I hear you're worried that we've used up our options.
Mm.
And is there more you're worried
Oh, yes.
about?
Oh, I can lie there at night and take on the whole, the whole world,
Right, but you say to it, is there more
mhm.
you're worried about? So in other words, you're
Yeah.
staying in the position of listener to
Hmm.
the worried part. And you are that compassionate listener rather than feeling like you have to be the small self who gets beaten up by these thoughts.
Right.
Right. Thank you so much for being able to join us
Oh,
and tell
thank
us
you.
wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Susan, for bringing in what we call the mind or the thoughts, because there are, and I call it a part of us that's trying to help us with overwhelming situations by bringing in its worries in the form of statements about truth. Do you know how when you're driving along and this used to happen, a traffic jam would form in front of you and you'd be a little bit late already, but then the traffic jam forms and maybe you're with a friend and your friend says, we're going to be late. Now, you don't actually know for sure you're going to be late, but worry gets stated as if it's true. And so when we hear these sort of daunting truths stated inside of us, the tip that I'm recommending is to turn toward it. Hello. Like, I'm sensing something in me says, I can't handle it. It's too much for me. I'll be overwhelmed. And I say to it, I sense that you are worried. Is that right? So the compassion is from the whole self to the worried part. Very good. So really understanding that for some people it's quite late at night right now. You'll be able to listen to the recording later. Mary writes, I was brought to a loss many years ago, and I sensed something in me felt like it was being swallowed up by darkness and free falling into that, flailing. And something in me still feels shock and like I'll never feel the ground again. Yeah, that sounds really hard and like it could be like that. Big loss, like my being ground into powder when my brother and sister died. So be present to what it is actually like, these rich metaphors, free falling, flailing, never feel the ground again. What I'm going to suggest is that, first of all, feelings are understandable reactions to life events. What is happening to you through your feelings makes sense. It's understandable. And by the way, just a little note on language. The word feelings is used to refer to both emotions and body sensations so that we can include both in what we're talking about. So feelings are understandable reactions to life events. Your feelings are not your problem. Your feelings are your friends. And in fact, feeling is an inherent part of living because we live interactively in our life situations and our feelings are always there, inherently and naturally. They live with us. So if we pause and sense our feelings, they can carry us forward. They can help us form next steps. And in itself, feeling is a forward life process. It's our bodies know how to heal from loss. It isn't easy. It may hurt, but our bodies know. It may feel like it's all too much, like we're overwhelmed, like we can't deal with it, but that too, the experience of being overwhelmed, is an experience to be present for. Being present matters. So I'm not just talking about feeling how you feel, feeling your feelings. I'm talking about being aware of feeling your feelings, being present to your feelings, being aware that feelings are there. And that your feelings make sense and they have messages for you. Like even the most painful feelings have messages that are more than just this hurts. It starts with being able to hear, yes, it hurts. But then there's more than that. And what we'll find is that there's something more, a next forward step inside every feeling. Now this reminds me, or calls out of me, the beautiful quote by my teacher, Eugene Genlin, who says in his book, Focusing, every bad feeling is potential energy toward a more right way of being if you give it space to move toward its rightness. And I love to break down that quote a little, because he doesn't just say most bad feelings. He says every bad feeling. Every feeling that feels to us unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful, stressful, without exception, it is in its nature a kind of potential energy. It is a kind of knowing that something is wrong and needs attention somehow. And our bodies know how. They're like weather vanes, tuning forks. Our bodies know how to notice that something is really wrong. And in some cases that might seem just, well, you don't have to keep telling me because I know. But there's more to it than that, okay? So every bad feeling is potential energy toward a more right way of being. Because your body is not only saying, ouch, this hurts. If we can tune into the specifics of what your body is speaking to you about, it will say what it is that isn't right, and it will say, indicate, show what would be more right, what would be a way through, what would be a new possibility. And then the finish of the quote is, if you give it space to move toward its rightness, every bad feeling is potential energy toward a more right way of being if you give it space to move toward its rightness. It's like seeing 3 pictures on the wall and the third one is crooked. You don't have to go through a decision-making process to know that that's a crooked picture. There's something off about it. Your body is already moving toward the wall to straighten it out. So our inner senses whisper to us about what would be more right. But if our painful feelings are shouting too loud, we can't hear the whispers. And so that's why step 1 is to form a compassionate relationship with all our feelings, no matter what. Listen to them, feel them, find metaphors that express them. I'm sensing something in me that feels, and I really hear you. And then the next step will be to listen for the quiet knowing underneath. Karen is writing in the chat about not wanting to label feelings as bad. I'm so with you on that, Karen. I believe that Jean Genlin did that in order to make the point that even feelings that are stressful, painful, and so on are indicators of something. And if the feeling is an enjoyable feeling, it doesn't indicate that something's wrong. Whereas if the feeling is the opposite of enjoyable, contractive perhaps might work better than the word bad, then it does indicate that there's something wrong, something needs attention. And so in that sense, not all feelings are alike. Yes, Khan writes, I now have nerve damage from dental implant failure that started 2 years ago, and I'm having a hard time dealing with it. Oh, of course, I really hear that. And physical pain definitely is about something being wrong. Your body is crying out, this isn't right, it feels wrong to me. Yeah. Andrea writes, something in me is angry about the terrible construction noise I have so little choice about having to put up with, and I'm sensing something else is judging me for not being able to keep my body from reacting with clenching muscles, trouble focusing, and heavy fatigue. And when I told a good friend and he didn't express compassion, I sensed something in me feeling angry at him. Wow, there's a lot there, Andrea. So something in you is angry about the construction noise, and something in you judges you for having body feelings, contracting muscles, trouble focusing, heavy fatigue. And that's where I'd want to come in and say, feeling is a natural response. It would be pretty odd if your body weren't reacting to that painful noise. And I'm really sorry that your friend didn't give you the compassionate response you were hoping for. So we're talking about several stages of relationship with feeling. And the first stage is to be present to how you feel. And believe me, this is a big, big deal, because we can fight how we feel and try not to feel it and create a whole other, what do I want to say, layer of stressful feeling on top of the first feeling. I shouldn't be feeling that way. I'm tired of feeling that way. So let me use my little friends to illustrate this. So I'm feeling really in pain. I'm sad. I feel broken. I feel ground into powder. Well, you have to get it together. You can't feel that way. And now we're going to have some kind of loop, because the feeling itself, that's a response to loss, has a forward life in it if we stay present to it. There's possibilities of next steps found when we can simply be with how we feel. But when another part of us doesn't let us do that, doesn't trust the change will happen, that's understandable too, of course. But now you want to get bigger than both and say, something in me feels ground into powder, and another something in me is afraid of letting me feel that, and I am here with both. And I am here with both. Now we know, I hope you all know about grief, that everybody grieves differently. And I don't think grief is a feeling. I think grieving is a process. And I'm going to put loss and big involuntary change kind of next to each other. So Khan, with the dental implant that's been hurting for 2 years, that is a loss. That loss doesn't have to be somebody's death. It can also be the loss of our peaceful, pain-free body, or our peace of mind. It could be the loss of a way of life. It could be the loss of certainty, when everything that felt kind of calm and sure is suddenly uncertain. These are serious things, and of course our bodies will react to them. And what I'm suggesting is that you be present to the body feeling that's here. And one of the tips about that is that that body feeling that you're present for right now may change and may be different from how it was even 15 minutes ago. Certainly it may be different from how it was yesterday. And so we're bringing awareness inward to sense freshly how it is right now. How is it now? And so what happens is we build up a kind of courage to come face to face with how it actually is in us. I'm not saying you should just be courageous right now. I don't think we can make ourselves feel any particular thing. But going through the process of simply saying, here's what I'm pausing, I'm sensing how I feel, I'm taking seriously that I've gone through, I am experiencing this big change or loss, and or loss. And I'm sensing how I am in my body about that. Allowing it time to be here just as it is. And I am willing, right? There's a willingness. I am willing to be with it and sense exactly how it feels right now. I am willing to be with it and sense exactly how it feels right now. And it doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like a spiky, broken heart, like a lump of stone inside. That is how it is. So the practice is to be present with how it feels, however it is. However it is. And then describe it using fresh metaphors. Amy writes, it's so hard to be with it when it is so painful. Yeah, I know. And sometimes I wish I could push it away, but I know it's not possible. So it's painful, and something in me wants to push it away, and I can be here with both. And Andrea writes, to me, so sorry, Anne, that you had to go through the hard times of losing your brother and sister. Actually, within weeks of each other. It was within a single month. Yes, Andrea, that is such a beautiful response. I'm just taking it in and feeling the warmth in my heart when you say that. And I didn't even ask Andrea to say that, but Andrea is actually making the next point I wanted to give to all of you. And that is, when we feel the painful feelings inside of us, painful, stressful, difficult, challenging, what, anything other than joyful, we feel those feelings inside. And then say, hello, I know you're there. I'm with you. I sense how you feel. And then we can say to the feelings themselves what Andrea said to me, which is, I'm so sorry you're having to go through that. Can you say that to your own feelings, the ones that are hard? That sounds, you can say to the feelings, that sounds hard. I'm so sorry you're having to go through that. It's what we most want to hear from each other, from ourselves. Yeah. Well, I have a little more I wanted to tell you about that has to do with the possibility of something new inside. And wait, I just want to talk to you about the time that my brother and sister both died. I felt I was being ground into powder. It was about 21 years ago. And I had never thought I could own a house. I'd been self-employed for so long. And I thought that getting a loan to buy a house meant you had to show a W-2 and prove your income, and I never could do that. So I thought, you know, I'm a person who's never going to own a house. And then right at the same time that my brother and sister died in April 1999, I was living in a little cottage, a rented cottage behind someone else's house. I'd been sort of sheltering there ever since I was divorced from Mr. Cornell. And it felt so safe back there. And I just kept thinking, oh, I'll just stay there the rest of my life and I'll be so safe and protected back here. And then my landlords didn't know that they were picking a very bad time to tell me that they needed me to move. They needed me to leave. And so here I am, being ground into powder already, and also now I've been asked to leave my safe, protected cottage. And I felt I cannot respond to this triple shock with my normal resources. And I found myself just opening up and sort of crying out to who knows who. What do you want of me? I didn't really expect an answer. But then an answer came. And the answer was start a focusing center. Well, I do sometimes get messages like that. And especially when I really open up and I don't have any expectations about what they're going to be. And my experience is that they also never explain themselves, whoever that may be, my higher self, my deeper intuition, who knows, or some other larger being, who knows, but start a focusing center. And then my landlords a few days later came to have a chat with me, and they said, well, what do you think you're going to do? And I found the words coming out of my mouth, I think I'll buy. And just by coincidence, right around that time, it became more possible for people who were self-employed to buy houses. And I did buy a house. And just 2 months after my brother and sister died, I was signing the closing papers on the house I still live in. It's been one of the greatest, most nourishing choices of my life. I don't know the guaranteed road. There is no promise that hard things lead to good things. That would be kind of Pollyanna-ish. But I do think that when we surrender to loss, let it crack us open, there is the potential to sense something like new life waiting to be born. Opening up to the unknown may feel awful. It may feel, I didn't want so much to be unknown and uncertain. It may mean we have to ask ourselves, who am I now? We may have a sense of the loss of our very identity. But you know, you've already changed so much throughout your life. It just hasn't always been shocking big change. And what if we allow life to crack us open? Might there even be treasure inside? So let's pause a moment and just sense together. At the start of our meeting, we paused so you could just feel your body and feel that your body is carrying a real response to what you're going through. Even if that's a painful, stressful, challenging response, it's true, it's real, it's genuine. And we ask you to sense freshly without assuming that it would be the same as it was before. So let's do that again. Let's find the body feel right now. And let it be a metaphor. right? We talk about describing with words like heavy and so on. Let yourself find a metaphor for what it feels like ground into powder, like falling and never landing, like having no ground, like being dangled over the Grand Canyon. What's it like? Do you have a sense of what it's like? And be present in your body to the feel of it and the metaphor of what it's like. Surrendering to it. I don't mean letting it take you over. I mean, I have a hard time saying what I mean. I mean, letting it be. Yeah, that's right. Letting it be as it is. It is this way, and I'm here with it. There's a kind of trust involved. See how much of that trust you feel, that you can allow it to be as it is. And just wait a little while. As I found myself crying out when things were too much, what do you want of me? What do you feel like asking, crying out? Do you feel something that can't even be named yet, that's forming, like this green shoot, forming in all of that? It takes time, but do you feel the beginnings of it? And even more than that, do you feel a willingness to take the time? Coming back to see what people have been writing. Evelyn writes, it feels like being set on fire and shot into outer space. There's a metaphor. Amy writes, like my heart is being ripped out of my chest and torn to pieces. Yeah, it feels like that. Susan writes, it feels like shriveling up and dying. Yes. Do you notice how important it is to say, yes, it feels that way? I grew up in a family where if I said that, everybody around me, especially my mother, would have said, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. It's not that bad. It's so important to let it be that bad. Just as bad as it is and no worse. Miriam says it's like a heavy stone falling to the bottom of a deep lake. Holly writes, falling and never landing, bringing tears. I've lost everything through chronic illness. I know, Holly. And I don't know what's next. Cracked open but can't yet see the treasure inside. I know. Yes. Yes. Lisa writes, like a tiny sprout in the middle of a storm. And Lily writes, I do feel the willingness. Andrea writes, straightening my shoulders and standing up to be true to my inner self. And Miriam, who wrote about the stone falling into water, says, I love swimming in deep water. Wow. Wow. This is so great. Now I'm just going to give you a summary of what we've said today, so you can really carry it with you. So we've talked about accompanying your feelings, pausing, being present in your body. Letting go of expectations, meaning not assuming that it's going to feel again the way it has felt. Being open to how it feels now. Sensing how it's actually right now. Letting yourself use fresh metaphors for what it's like. Metaphors are so helpful because they're so rich. They let your body express itself, as we've seen with the metaphors that were shared in the chat. And then we can also get bigger than our feelings by saying, I'm sensing something in me feels. I'm saying hello to that. And I am here with all of that. We can also put a gentle hand on our bodies. And if you don't know where it is, let the hand just go to your heart. And we learned that our inner sense whispers to us, and if our painful feelings are shouting too loud, we can't hear the whispers. So we need to start by forming a compassionate relationship with all our feelings, no matter what. Letting them be as they are. And that process allows the quiet knowing underneath to emerge. Yes. Candace writes, the metaphor is like I'm pinging back and forth in the points of a star. And Laura writes, I feel like a hand made of blades scratching my inner flesh very, very deeply. I am so enjoying the rich metaphors that you are sharing. And it's so powerful to come face to face with our feelings using metaphors. Notice how impoverished is the list of single words like sad, anxious, angry, compared to, grieving, compared to these very rich metaphors. Lovely. And Diane writes, when it's shame, it's a feeling that like a piece of trash. And you can say to that one in you that feels like a piece of trash, I hear how hard that is for you. And so let's add to our summary of the things we've gone over today. Being able to say, I'm here with you, and I sense how hard it is for you. To give yourself that quality of compassion, of listening. I'm here. I hear how hard it is for you. I could share another story with you. I was hit by a car as a pedestrian in January of the year I was 64. And I did not expect that to happen. According to the police report, I was thrown through the air and flew 40 feet before I landed on my hands and knees. And the year that followed was a journey in which how to manage my pain was always on the top of my mind. Even so, I did everything I'd planned to do that year, including giving my first keynote address at a United States psychology conference, flying across the country to speak at the Psychotherapy Networker Conference, flying to the Netherlands to do a workshop there, doing a workshop in Canada, I recently looked at all the things I did that. I went to Brazil. So what was it that allowed me to do that? Well, I kept being present to myself, to my feelings, and listening to what it needed. At one point, somebody in my presence let fall the idea of walking in a pool, walking in a swimming pool. And a few days later, I was doing that. And for the next 2 months, I woke up at 7 every morning to go walk in a swimming pool. So, and at each stage of the healing from the injury process, I was listening to how it felt and listening to what it needed. And I just wanted to show you this photo that I took 1 year later, 1 year after the day I was hit by a car. This This photo was taken at the same intersection where I got hit. By that time, I was already, doing push-ups, lifting weights in my healing journey from being hit by a car. There was a point where my physical therapist was done with me. She said, I can't do any more for me, but I could feel that my body wasn't healed. It still needed something more. And the body said, I feel weak. I feel vulnerable. I feel fragile. And I sensed that I need to get strong. And I checked with my body, and sure enough, and that's when I started working with a personal trainer. So these are examples that may or may not help you, but this we know for sure. Life wants to live. Body life lives forward. I just love this, the picture of the baby chick. Life wants to live is something that Eugene Genlin, the developer of focusing, often liked to say. Life wants to live forward. Life wants to take its next steps. And the way we get there is by being present to how we feel, being willing to be present to actually how we feel, being compassionate to ourselves, kind to ourselves, and then listening for the whispers inside. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with me today. Thank you so much for being here. See you later. Bye.